You can access the entire episode now on our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, Rokfin, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. It seems like some of these are just automatically being dismissed as accidental drownings.
Yes.
Nothing suspicious. Police say or nothing suspicious happened with this case. That's very interesting when, especially with some of the details that you were sharing, like some of these people are trained to be around water and it's very uncharacteristic of them to just drown. So are there any other cases where it seems like very odd circumstances that the police are just ruling accidental?
Yeah, there's tons. Like going back, like these are the ones, the outline that I sent you are just the recent cases, but a lot of these older cases are very strange. There's cases out of Pittsburgh. There's recent cases out of Pittsburgh, but one who I followed is Dakota James. And he was a swimmer. He was like the head of his swim team in high school. Like they found him, like they supposedly said he drowned. He was fit as a fiddle, like a young athletic guy. But what was strange about that case, he was found in the Ohio River 40 days after he disappeared, but his body was almost in perfect shape. There was no sign of decomposition. So where was Dakota James for 40 days? And that similarity of a lot of these cases is that people are found. There was one of the early cases that Gannon studied out of, was it LaSalle or somewhere in Wisconsin, where the body had been deliberately frozen. So they found it in a state of being thawed out. So somebody was doing really heavy duty, clever stuff. And that's how that one killer in New York City got the name the Iceman, right? That forgot his name, but he was a serial killer, mob hitman. And he would confuse the police by taking his victims and shoving them in like a refrigerator.
Does there seem to be a lot of mob crossover with some of this stuff?
Some aren't. That's kind of what's strange about it. It's like a lot of these guys are pretty straight. The victims, who I would call victims, are pretty straight-laced. They're educated. They're smart. They're not. A lot of the family. One of the giveaways that something happened or misadventure happened is the family members say like, this is totally out of character for this guy. Almost all of them do. Like that's how you can tell. Is like, yeah, he only has 2 drinks a night. Like, what are you talking about? This is not a heavy drinker. But they're not. There doesn't seem to be a mob element. There seems to be, and this the Gannon and Gilbertson had said this, is that there seems to be some group with a similar interest in this targeted population that's communicating online. And they use symbols and things like that. So Gannon and Gilbertson have said they found like 10 symbols associated with it. So it has that kind of trappings of occultism. And there was a really interesting case that just happened last year. I think it was November 2022. The young man luckily survived, but he went out to go take a leak after a TD Garden game. There's been like 3 cases out of TD Garden in Boston. Boston is definitely a hotspot. But he went out to go to the bathroom and he doesn't remember anything. And he was found in the water face down like 10 minutes later by his friends. Like, where's Joe? I forgot his name. But you can see this interview online. And he doesn't remember. And he was pulled from the water by his friends. And there was a mystery guy there they have a picture of him. But nobody knows why he was there or what he was doing with this like potential victim. So it was just a really interesting case. Yeah, really. So there's all kinds of strange.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying there's all kinds of high weirdness involved in a lot of these cases. Like there's guys who like this guy Pugh. There's another one in Boston. Just like strange things. Like one of the original cases was a Bobby Hurley guy who came out of TD Garden and was waiting for his girlfriend. He had his phone and literally just disappeared, later to be found in, I think it's the Charles River.
Now, as far as survivors, how many documented survivors have you come across, and what information could they have provided as to any evidence?
That's a good question. The thing is they can't remember. So like Christopher Pugh, they don't know, he doesn't remember anything because he was drugged. And there's been there's been some reports by another guy I've heard who was found next to a river. Same thing happened in Wisconsin. There was a survivor who something like went wrong. There was another guy who's found like underneath like a turnstile. He just woke up. He was like drinking in a bar and then came to his senses like far away. And he went to the judge. They took him in. I think they busted him for trespassing. He says, "I'm really sorry, Judge. I don't really know what happened to me. I just woke up there. That's when I came to consciousness." So the notion of a survivor. The other thing is that like somebody may be caught for one of these cases, and then they don't see it as a serial killing, right? So there was a guy in Michigan. His name was Katunsky, who was on. There's also a correlation between like male dating apps, like the original guy that I was talking to you about, Joey Labute, was on a male dating app. I don't know if it was Grindr or not. But this guy, Latunsky, was on Grindr, and he found some guy. I can remember his name because it's the same name of the actor Kevin Bacon. And the cops did a great job, actually, and traced him back to this guy Latunsky's house. And Latunsky said, "Yeah, come on in. Yeah, no worries." It was almost like Silence of the Lambs or something like that, because they said, "Can we check downstairs?" And so the cops went downstairs, and the cops found a fake panel with a dungeon, and there was the victim upside down. And Latunsky had eaten his testicles. And he just finally got sentenced. Yeah, he got sentenced just within the last year. But he might have been involved in all kinds of stuff. He actually worked in Pittsburgh. So some of these guys, like, they don't get caught for the whole shit. Like Huneman, this guy who got busted for the list killings, looks like he was killing people for a long time. And
it's possible that some of these guys that have been caught are connected in some way.
Yeah. Latunsky is a good case in point of that, because he had a very active social media life, and he had some symbol around his neck of a werewolf, and they were online talking with other people with the same interest in men. They were all gay, but all kinds of weird coded messaging. He said, "I'm the last guy you want to meet out on a night out." Like, he would say really threatening stuff. They were anti-Christian. So it was a weird group. Like, if I was a cop, I'd be investigating all those people.
Well,
like,
speaking of the cops, it's with the fact that it seems that a lot of these are just being ruled accidental drowning. How probable is it that there is police involvement or a cover-up of some sort?
That's a great question. I think that some of these are covered up. And I've talked to other people about this. And I think the incentive of the authorities is to downplay any deaths and murders, whether it's on college campuses because of the financial interest. Like, why would you send your son to a college if there was a serial killer there, right? So I think that it's kind of somebody I talked to who made the correlation between this thing and like Jaws, right? So Amityville, yeah, there's no shark, everybody get back in the water, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's almost kind of like, so I think that the authorities don't want to downplay. Now, I know that the authorities are aware of this kind of phenomenon because they've showed up at certain meetings. So, for example, the mother of Joey Labute went and talked to the DA in Pittsburgh, and in that meeting was somebody from the Secret Service and the FBI. So why would they be there? So that was really, and Joey Labute is a very interesting case to look at for a wide variety of reasons. But he's one of the other interesting things about the medical examination of Joey Labute is that it was done by a Chinese guy, and nothing came out to the public. And the family wisely got Cyril Wecht, who's a very famous medical examiner who lives in Pittsburgh, to take a look at the body, and he found something different, which was ligature marks around the neck of Joey Labute. So I think that's why these bodies are thrown in water, is to remove evidence of anything, whether it's torture or stuff. And the same thing actually happened with McNeil, this one case I mentioned in 1997. The family never got a copy of the autopsy, but when they got a copy of the autopsy and had somebody check it out, McNeil had been blowtorched above the waist, and they said that there were rope burns, like he was tied in a chair. Yeah. So really dark, like heavy duty, like BDSM stuff. And there are ties of that kind of thing involved in this too. But I think that that's kind of what these cases are abductions. They're being held for a time and then murdered. Either there and then dropped in the water. Yeah. So they're pre-drowned or something like that. Which is why if you look at the cover of my first documentary, it's pretty dark stuff.